and if Tony does want to reach the 6,000 ounce goal, we need more than one plant going, because this is the latest we've ever gone in my 20-ish years of working here to start sluicing.
Mononia is still chasing that 6,000 ounce dream, but we're running behind. To hit that goal, one plant isn't enough. This is the latest start I've seen in over 2 decades of working up here. And the clock's already ticking. Monica Beets once held that same fire, the determination to keep going long after everyone else called it a day. She wasn't the one shouting orders or demanding the spotlight. She just showed up, worked harder than anyone, and kept things running when everything else was falling apart. And yet somehow, her name never made the headlines. She didn't quit because she couldn't handle it. She left because the weight of the work was crushing, and no one ever said thank you. Monica helped build the heart of the Beets mining empire, but when she became a mother, she finally saw what mattered most, and for the first time, she chose herself. Stick around, because when Monica walked away, even her father, the legendary Tony Beets, began to stumble. The silence she left behind was louder than any engine. The weight of gold, it turns out, isn't measured in ounces. It's measured in absence. Monica Beets wasn't just Tony's daughter. In the endless cold of the Klondike, where daylight stretches and the ground never stops groaning, she was the quiet balance holding back chaos. At 12 years old, she was thrown into the driver's seat of a front-end loader. No manual, no guidance, no margin for error. There were no instructions in her world, only the expectation to figure it out. And she did. That trial by ice didn't break her. It built her. What she uncovered beneath the frozen ground changed the course of her life. Got a hole in our top screen? How bad is it? 2 runs blocked off. Those were the kind of problems Monica faced daily. And every time she learned, adapted, and pushed forward, there were no shortcuts, only grit. While her brothers were handed confidence and guidance, Monica had to fight for every ounce of respect. She earned her authority the hard way, through action, not noise. The Yukon didn't welcome her. She carved her own space in it. "It feels good to be sluicing again," she once said. "At least now, we're actually moving toward that 6,000 ounce mark." And that's what she did. She moved everything forward. She led crews twice her age. She ran Paradise Hill like a seasoned commander. Every piece of gold that left those sluice boxes had passed through systems she'd kept alive with her own hands. But beneath all that success was a promise that never came. The claim she'd been told would one day be hers. Tony Beets, fierce and unrelenting, always hinted she'd have her own ground to work, her own empire within his, but that promise always stayed just beyond reach. Then came the Hester Cut, untouched ground buried in permafrost and potential. "It's leaking through that dike already," Tony muttered. "Starts with a trickle, but soon you've got a river." For Tony, it was another bet on buried treasure. For Monica, it was something deeper, a chance to finally attach her name to something her father hadn't touched. First, she threw everything she had into that patch of earth. Every frozen hose, every busted chain, every stubborn bucket of pay dirt. She made it personal, but the Yukon doesn't care about personal. The weather turned, the roads gave way, the equipment failed, and still Monica showed up, cold, tired, but unshaken. She didn't own the land on paper. Her name didn't appear in the credits, but everyone on site knew that progress was hers. "My plants pulled 1,000 ounces, she said once, matter-of-factly. No ego, just truth. Still, no matter how much gold she brought in, the reward never matched the effort. And one morning, Without warning, her place was empty. No announcement, no goodbye, just the hum of machines echoing through the silence she left behind. "Evan, you there?" The bigger rocks fell onto our screens again, gonna tear right through them. But Monica wasn't there to answer, and suddenly, everyone felt it. No one replaced her. No one could. The work continued, but something in the rhythm of Paradise Hill had changed behind the cameras. Few saw what it truly cost her: the exhaustion, the constant push to prove herself, the pressure of carrying a family legacy while building her own. She worked through sickness, through stress, through silence. In 2018, she quietly married Taylor Miles. In 2021, their daughter was born, and everything shifted. After a lifetime of surviving chaos, she finally found calm. Toronto offered her something no mine ever could: peace. The gold there wasn't metal, it was time-space to breathe. Freedom to exist without proving anything to anyone. Leaving the Yukon wasn't walking away from gold. It was walking toward herself. And even Tony felt it. He'd never say it out loud, but it showed, in the way he stared at maps a little longer, in the questions he asked that used to be hers to answer. Something was missing, and everyone knew what it was. The Beets name still carried weight in the Yukon, but the heart that held it together had stepped away. Tony Beets had built an empire on noise and drive. Monica had held it together with quiet precision. Her work was never loud. It was steady, strategic, and exact. While Tony's voice filled the airwaves, Monica's touch kept the gears from seizing. But in a world built on shouting, her silence went unnoticed until it was gone. The Hester cut was her moment, her blueprint, her strategy, her chance. She mapped it, planned it, fought for it. But nature had its own script. Storms rolled in, machinery broke, and frost buried her progress faster than she could dig it out. She'd always believed that if she worked hard enough, the Yukon would give something back. But this time, it didn't. It just reminded her, some gold isn't meant to be mined. The road leading into the cut had turned into mud. Thick, sinking, unforgiving. But Monica kept going. Every delay, every broken hose, every missed target, she met them head-on. When the pay dirt finally started to move, the moment should have felt triumphant. Instead, it felt heavy, not because she wanted praise, but because no one offered it. The Discovery Channel turned the Beets family into television icons. Tony, the untamed king of the Klondike, his sons, the next in line. Monica never fit that script. She wasn't wild enough. She didn't throw wrenches or curse at the cameras. She just worked, quietly, relentlessly, efficiently. And while her father's fame grew, she became a silent presence in the background, essential but unseen. By the time she married Taylor Miles, she was running on fumes. The wedding happened between equipment orders and fuel deliveries, squeezed into the chaos of mining season. Yet she still found a way to smile. For a moment, she allowed herself happiness, even as her mind kept drifting north, back to the Yukon, back to the noise she could never quite leave behind. Years of survival had rewired her peace, split it between who she was and what she'd been built to do. Then came her daughter, and everything changed, not dramatically, but deeply. For the first time, Monica felt a kind of responsibility that had nothing to do with numbers or machines. It wasn't about ounces or output, it was about presence, being there, fully, without the weight of production pressing on her chest. The Yukon doesn't make room for stillness, it demands motion. But Toronto, far from the engines, far from the frozen grind, gave her something she didn't know she needed: quiet abundance. Holding her baby in the soft light of morning, Monica realized the math of mining no longer made sense. What once felt like achievement now felt like debt. 5,000 ounces from Paradise Hill. That's a solid haul. Simple formula, more dirt, more sluicing, more gold. But without her, Paradise Hill wasn't the same. The system adjusted, awkwardly. Tony filled gaps with his trademark volume. Kevin buried himself in machinery. The rhythm Monica had kept so precise began to stumble. Delays multiplied, coordination faltered. The cracks were small, but they spread. A kind of tension you can't trace to one cause, but feel everywhere the show went on. The gold still came out of the ground, but something invisible was missing. The quiet pulse that had once kept the whole thing balanced. Inside the Beets family, no one said it aloud. They never did. But the silence was full of questions. Would she return? Could she? Had something broken that couldn't be repaired? Tony didn't ask, but he lingered over site maps longer than usual. Kevin started second-guessing systems Monica used to manage instinctively. Even the audience noticed. Fans filled forums with questions. Where was Monica? Why wasn't she in the new episodes? What had happened to the calm in the storm? He's gonna drill through the seal, bolt the steel and rubber down. Tony's voice carried across the site. But it didn't fill the gap she'd left. Back in Toronto, Monica stayed silent. No interviews, no statements. Just life. She was raising her daughter, remembering what it felt like to sleep without the hum of diesel engines outside her window. No frostbite, no alarms, just slow, ordinary mornings, the kind that felt like healing. But you can't easily shed what's been forged into your bones. The Yukon was still inside her. The smell of grease, the sound of metal, the rhythm of work. Some nights, she'd wake and feel the absence like a ghost. Not regret, just memory. Her choice wasn't rebellion, it was survival. Things in the Yukon didn't collapse after she left. They just lost their symmetry, and in mining, imbalance is a dangerous thing. Monica Beets didn't storm off in anger or make some grand declaration. She simply stepped away, quietly, completely. The way a season changes without anyone noticing the exact moment. One day, she was there, keeping everything steady. The next, she was gone. No scene, no statement, just a silence that echoed louder than any machine. To viewers, she was still Tony Beets' daughter, a side character in his empire. But that wasn't reality. The truth was harder to see and harder to admit. She was the structure holding it all together. Her exit didn't destroy the Beets operation, but it destabilized it. The Yukon doesn't reward quiet endurance. It doesn't celebrate sacrifice. It tests you until something gives. Monica had grit, resilience, and willpower. But those things can't protect you from exhaustion. They can't warm a freezing trailer at midnight when a part shipment's 3 days late. They can't fill the void left by promises that never quite become real. Her leaving wasn't loud, but its effect was seismic, like pulling a bearing from a running engine. That's just a patch job. Hopefully it holds. At least we can fire it up again, Tony said. But things didn't run the same. The flow faltered. The spark dimmed. The empire that once thrived on precision began to stumble over its own noise. Tony never talked about it, but everyone saw it. He barked orders louder, but paused longer before giving them. He demanded more, but trusted less. Something fundamental had slipped out of alignment. For years, Monica had been his right hand, his unshakable center, and now she was gone. Not because she stopped caring, but because love for the work can only take you so far. The audience noticed too. Episode recaps called it out. The missing tone, the shift in atmosphere. The show hadn't lost its drama, but it had lost its heart. Meanwhile, in Toronto, Monica wasn't watching any of it. She wasn't keeping score. She was focused on something else entirely. A life defined not by deadlines or dirt, but by presence. For the first time, her hours belonged to her. No schedules, no site calls, just peace. But the past doesn't fade easily. It lingers, like gold dust in the air, long after the sluice shuts down. It stays with you, in the scars, in the echoes, in the stillness. After a long day, when your body swears, it can still hear the excavators humming, and your mind keeps scanning for danger that isn't there anymore. Paradise Hill had been home, but it was also the forge. And sometimes, the same fire that shapes you is the one that hollows you out. People around her couldn't grasp the depth of that fracture. To them, walking away from a multi-million-dollar mining legacy sounded impossible. But gold has always carried ghosts. Every ounce pulled from the earth comes at a price. Choices made, time surrendered, pieces of yourself quietly spent. Monica understood that truth better than anyone. She didn't just live the mining life, she inhaled it. She carried the strain of being a woman in a world that doubted her every move, the pressure of being the calm face of a family empire that demanded results, and the unrelenting expectation to never, ever falter. Her shoulders weren't just bearing tools, they bore legacy, and eventually, even steel bends. Even as she built a new life, the North never fully let go. It wasn't calling her back like some dramatic siren song. It was quieter, deeper, like a heartbeat she could still feel beneath the noise of the city. A part of her remained tied to those frozen roads, the roaring dozers, the permafrost that used to crack beneath her boots. She hadn't rejected the Yukon. She'd simply realized that being needed isn't the same as being valued. Clearing all this overburden will get us running dirt faster. The sooner we run dirt, the sooner we make gold. Back at Paradise Hill, the gears kept turning. New faces joined the crew, old hands moved on. Machines broke, got fixed, broke again. Pay dirt flowed, but the rhythm was off. Coordination slipped. The harmony that once existed started to crumble into noise. Kevin tried to hold the pieces together. Tony pushed harder, shouted louder. But even as the operation ran, it didn't hum. It clanked. Inside the Beets family, the silence stretched wide. No one said her name. No one asked her to return. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was just the Beets way. Bury the pain, keep moving, pretend the gears aren't grinding. But everyone knew Monica had been the stabilizer, the quiet constant that made the chaos make sense. And now, she was gone. Fans noticed first. Comment sections filled with questions, theories, and hope. Would she ever come back? Could she? Monica stayed silent, not out of anger, but because for once, she didn't owe anyone an answer. For the first time, she wasn't responsible for the next breakdown, the next crisis, the next 12-hour shift. Her whole identity had been built around the mine, around holding things together. Stepping away felt, at first, like tearing something out of herself. But with time, the wound began to close. Still, the legacy never left completely. Her daughter will one day learn that her mother helped shape a part of the Yukon, that her name isn't just buried in the credits of a TV show, but etched into the foundation of one of the North's most iconic mining empires. And when that day comes, maybe the little girl will ask, "Why did you leave?" If Monica ever returns, it'll be on her own terms, not as an assistant, not as the quiet hand behind the empire, but as a leader, an equal, a woman who no longer has to prove her worth. And if she doesn't return, that choice will speak louder than any announcement ever could. Because sometimes standing tall means walking away. Sometimes strength isn't in staying, it's in knowing when something no longer fits. Monica Beets didn't step down. She stepped into herself, into a life that didn't demand she break just to belong. She walked away from gold. But maybe the real question is, did the empire ever deserve her in the first place? The hum of machinery may have faded, but its rhythm still lived inside her. Even now, far from the Yukon, Monica sometimes caught herself listening for engines that weren't there. That low, constant growl that once measured her days. Paradise Hill had built her, shaped her, and in some ways, scarred her. The same drive that had once fueled her now felt like something she needed to escape. To outsiders, leaving didn't make sense. Who walks away from a fortune, from a legacy carved into the frozen ground? But gold is never just gold. It's time, it's sacrifice, it's sleepless nights and broken promises buried under permafrost. Monica knew that better than anyone. She didn't just work the mine, she carried it. In her body, in her silence, in the way she held her breath when something broke, and everyone looked to her to fix it. For years, she did it all without complaint. While others shouted, she solved. While the cameras searched for spectacle, she provided substance. But quiet strength rarely gets celebrated. Discovery Channel turned the Beets family into a legend. Tony, the king, the boys, his heirs. Monica didn't fit the image. She wasn't loud enough, reckless enough, dramatic enough. She was just indispensable. And that made her invisible. Then life shifted. Marriage, motherhood, distance. A new rhythm began in Toronto, one measured not in ounces of gold, but in moments of peace. The roar of engines was replaced by the hush of a baby's breathing. For the first time in years, her value wasn't tied to production, it was tied to presence. That realization changed everything. Back in the Yukon, the mine kept moving, but something essential was missing. The smooth coordination Monica once commanded gave way to hesitation. Tasks dragged, tempers shortened, efficiency slipped. The crew adjusted, but the spark was gone. Tony pushed harder, Kevin filled the gaps, yet the rhythm felt off. The machine still ran, but it no longer sang. No one spoke about it directly. The Beets family never did. Pride, maybe, habit definitely, but the silence said everything. Viewers noticed too. The missing energy, the calm authority that used to balance the chaos. Forums buzzed with one question. Where's Monica? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. Away from the noise, she found something rarer than gold. Stillness. She learned how to rest without guilt, how to breathe without rushing, how to exist without a camera capturing her every move. And though she never announced her departure, her absence echoed louder than any statement ever could. Paradise Hill carried on, but it wasn't the same. And maybe it wasn't meant to be, because sometimes the system only works when someone sacrifices more than they should, until one day they stop. Monica hadn't quit. She'd evolved. The Yukon would always be part of her. The grit, the cold, the relentless motion, but so would the lesson it taught her, that survival isn't the same as living. She didn't abandon the mine. She reclaimed herself. If she ever returns, it won't be as a supporting act or a quiet helper. It'll be as an equal, as the woman who once held the empire together in silence. And if she doesn't, that too will speak volumes. Because sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is walk away, not out of anger, but out of understanding. Monica Beets didn't leave the Yukon in protest. She left because she'd already proven everything she needed to. She didn't lose gold. She found herself. What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this one.